Welcome into the Husker247 podcast. I'm Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Bruntz, Christopherson. It is August 16th, and we are still 2 weeks away from Nebraska's first game. But that gives us time to discuss this fall camp, and so we will do that. That is what today's podcast is going to be about. First, I'm going to check to see if there's any necessary banter we need to get to. Is there anything anybody wants to get off their chest? Is there any anything that's happened to you in the last week that you feel like the Husker247 podcast listeners need to know about before we get into this very important fall camp news?
No, I don't think so.
All right, Bruntz says no news.
We're in the dog days of fall camp.
Yeah, the dog days of the dog days.
Yes,
this is double dog days.
This is when you got to just grind. You got to tell everybody how hard you're working. You got to post the videos of you standing like this, talking to people, talking about how busy you are, those kinds of things. So
would you guys like it if I just came to media availability and took pictures of each of you as you work, and then we can post them to make it seem like you're really, in there doing your job, in case anybody was concerned?
I mean, you could do that. I think that'd be okay.
BT, how do you feel about that?
No, Brian?
No, probably not. If you
want like to do a documentary style, like I just follow you around for a day so people can see what it's like to be Brian Christopherson?
That would be a friggin' boring documentary. I'll tell you that much.
People would be concerned about your habit of drinking coffee in your car with no top on it.
Yeah, they'd be like, "What's up with that?" First off, then there'd be like, "Oh, from 2:30 to 3:15 is a nap every day." No, it's not. It's not. But there is. I do get a nap in sometimes. I learned that from Don Draper. Don Draper, whenever he had a big situation brewing on Mad Men, he'd just take a nap. He'd just sleep it off. And I kind of thought, like, that's not the worst thing. But anyway, if you guys had joined me at the Blues Traveler concert, then we'd have a lot to talk about. But you weren't there.
Yeah. Did you ever done the coffee nap? You know what that is? It's where you quickly drink a cup of coffee, lay down for about a 20-minute nap before the caffeine kicks in, and then blammo, you're perky and ready to go in about 20 minutes.
I haven't intentionally done a coffee nap, but I guarantee you I've done coffee naps before because I just drink coffee all day and I do take naps occasionally. So I've probably executed it. I'll have to do a study though if it works or not, and I'll get back to you.
Bruntz, how often do you do the coffee nap? It seems like you might be a vet.
Rarely now. I was a more frequent patron of the coffee nap. It's hard to pull off, but once you figure it out, you're okay.
I'll file that away under the many things that I will try or do if I ever drink coffee. So
yep.
We'll just add that to the growing list. All right. I promised that we were going to get into fall camp news, and we're going to do just that. So Matt Rule spoke on Tuesday. Matt Rule spoke on Saturday. We last podcasted on Wednesday, and there is some news as it relates to Nebraska, the biggest of which Xavier Betts has left the Nebraska football program. BC, would you like to fill us in on this?
Yeah, I mean, it did catch guys over there off guard. Rule said as much, and the players did as well that were asked about him. And basically just like he told Matt Rule, his heart's not in it. He was stepping away from the game. I think it was a surprise to people because of all that had gone into him getting to the point he had in the spring where, he took 21 credit hours. And really, too, in the summer, early summer, he did an interview or two where he just seemed like full of joy, like being around the team again and stuff like that. So I think people really thought it was trending toward a different story here, but he did what, hopefully makes him happy over the long run. And that's what guys said who were asked about it. They just said, it's disappointing, but we hope he ends up happy. He'll be a friend. And I like Garrett McGuire too, though. And you guys brought up, Schaefer brought up Hoosiers when I tweeted about it, the Norman Dale, my team, like your team's here, at the pep rally. Let's support them.
Let's support who we are, not who we are not.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Bruntz can't wait to just tell us how much Hoosiers sucks. I see him up there in the left-hand corner of my screen right now, and he is getting like wired up and ready to go, and I'm already furious about it.
It's okay. You know where I stand. We don't need a rehash.
Terrible.
Yeah.
It's true though. Like
it's not true.
No, the point that your comparison is true, and I think it's kind of like I think that's how they run the program, right? Like Bob Wager gets dismissed. He gets off the bus, Josh Martin's on the bus, Xavier Betts, decides he doesn't want to play football anymore. They say, okay, well, good luck. You know how to reach us if you need anything, but we're moving forward. I mean, that's kind of how you have to do it. I mean, I don't think you can linger on it.
Yeah. I mean, and if you think about it, common sense wise, why would you? I mean, it's just like that happened. It's done, and it's not like you're gonna sit there at your desk just like, oh man. I mean, they've got to find some options though, and I do think you could have a discussion about how big a loss is this. It did seem like Xavier Betts was coming along and doing some good things for him in practice, but also someone who wasn't on the team last year, and we hadn't seen in action in a long time, and so you don't know exactly what you lost. Because in some ways, Nebraska never fully had it with Zavier Betts. It just, it never was where we got to see him just week in, week out as a third, fourth year player, what that actually looks like. So you can talk about what you think they lost, but we really don't know because it's just something that we'll never get to see, I guess.
I suspect we're going to get into a deeper dive of the wide receiver position later in the episode. So I'm going to condense this just to give me one name, Brian, that you're intrigued that could receive more playing time because of this. Just one name.
Okay. I mean, Alex Bullock is maybe the easy one, but he's in the picture, and it doesn't surprise me. I've written this, and I'll say it again. When he was at Omaha Creighton Prep, when I got sent to cover his games, you could send me out on my assignment sometimes, and there'd be other guys we were kind of focused on, and I always thought, like, he's the best guy in this field. There's no doubt about it. Like, who's the best high school player on the field? It's Alex Bullock. Like, I always came away thinking that. So that he's making noise does not surprise me. That Thomas Fidoni's like, yeah, he's one of the better route runners and stuff I've seen. I just always believe in that kid. Not a shock. So I like that Rule told him, he's like, hey, you're a scholarship type guy, just battle. Like you can play with these guys, and obviously his brother's doing it on the defensive side right now, John. So it's the year of Bullock, perhaps. We will see.
All right. Well, we've seen some Bullocks have some success at Nebraska in the past. We'll see if it happens again. Bruntz, we have not heard yet on Eric Gilbert and the waiver. What is your level of concern at this point? And how far-reaching would it be if Eric Gilbert is unable to play for Nebraska in 2023?
Yeah, I don't know what your guys' sense has been, but it's always kind of seemed like they've approached it as like if he's eligible, it would be like a bonus. Like I don't know how much they've got his name or have had his name in Sharpie in their depth chart, mental depth chart. Since he arrived from Georgia, Matt Rule was very forceful in his comments last Saturday about, people that aren't willing to grant that waiver. And it's different. It's a different situation than some of the waivers that have been rejected already. Let's just put that out there. So I don't know. I mean, was your guys' sense too that perhaps they've heard something preliminarily? Like it seemed like there was intent behind those words, more so than what we've heard previously, where it's been a lot of the, if he plays great, if not, we'll get him ready for the draft, or have him ready for next year. I noticed the change in tone, I guess, on Saturday is all.
Could it just be straight frustration? Because it's not like this is a new thing.
Right.
It's not like the waiver just got fired or filed, excuse me. I think part of the frustration sometimes stems from how slow the process operates on the NCAA's end, that you don't have an answer and you're now a couple weeks into fall camp. So I could see where that could be the frustration, but you could absolutely be right. They could have a preliminary belief as to how this thing is going to go down. I'm just gonna toss this out there. I don't know anything on it. If Eric Gilbert doesn't play this year, if he doesn't get the waiver, do you think he ever takes a snap for Nebraska?
I kind of think yes. And I know the possibility is that that's the other way on that, because of his talent level, and he could just go right to the pros. But I would think
or play for a USFL or an XFL or whatever.
Definitely. It definitely could go the other way. But yes or no, one of those radio questions. I'll say yes, just to play that part. And I think the reasoning would be he's found a really good culture fit. It seems like here from everything we've heard, he's adapted well to it, and these guys have, the staff has really believed in him, and it could be a way of returning that, but also just putting on film at a big time, on a big time stage, which it would be next year, would be a nice opportunity for a guy who doesn't have a lot of college film unless you go back to his first year at LSU. So that would be my reasoning for.
Yep. Bruntz, do you feel strongly one way or the other?
Not really. I mean, I think his kind of ceiling is pretty well known in NFL circles, that he's just a freak elite athlete.
Yeah.
I do wonder, how does sitting out another year kind of, work for him? How is Nebraska kind of able to keep him engaged and, moving forward without kind of the carrot of, actual games there? I mean, I think that would be a concern. I don't know. I guess you would like another year of film for him, just because he had such the great freshman year at LSU and just not a ton of production since then, or even, games at all. I mean, he really hasn't played that much at all. So I would be a little bit surprised if he did play at Nebraska, if he doesn't play this season. But at the same time, I don't know it's necessarily a slam dunk that he could easily move on to the NFL too.
Yep. I just wanted to see kind of where you guys came down with that, because I could easily see a scenario where if he doesn't get a waiver, he never actually ends up suiting up for Nebraska. All right. We'll close out news and notes here with a little bit of injury news. BC, do you want to run through what we've heard so far from Matt Rule on guys like Marcus Washington, Nori Newelly, Teddy Prohaska? I don't know if there's other ones that I need to throw in there. I don't know if we know the status of Marcus Buford yet. All of those things. So I'm just throwing it out there. Give us the Brian Christopherson injury report of August 16th.
Yeah, Bruntz can help me if I forget any. Nuri's back, and in fact did media stuff the other day. Feels good, he said. So he should be rolling at that right guard spot. So I think you can probably say what your starting five is now, from left to right. Prohaska is not back yet. He's in the yellow jersey over there. He went to Rule the other day and said he's pretty close to that next phase. Of course, there's going to be rust and knockoff for him. So how long that's going to take. And, Corcoran's the left tackle and for now until proven otherwise, I think, going into the season. And even if Prohaska is back by week 1 or week 2, he's going to have to fight his way, back into a spot. And you're not maybe just going to shift guys around anyway. Marcus Washington is very close. In fact, Rule thought on Tuesday that he might be back then, but he wasn't quite yet. He had the broken bone in his hand to start the camp. That was fine, and then he had a lower body injury that at the moment it happened, they were really concerned about, but it wasn't as bad as initially thought. And so he should be back. It seems like in these, maybe today for all I know as we're doing this, but this week you're hoping that he's back because they obviously need that depth at wide receiver. Marquise Buford is still over like in the yellow jersey crowd, which is the guys who they call it the pit, or sort of just doing their own little workouts. I think Tommy Hill was over there a little bit yesterday too. So that's one that hopefully is not a big deal. Princewell was out
over there.
Yeah. And Princewell was out yesterday, not there, but injured, not long-term, Rule said. So there's some nicks that you expect this time in fall camp that we got to keep an eye on. And I think if some of those guys are still out like early next week, then you're starting to be like, okay, is that going to bleed into the season? That you're getting to that point.
Bruntz, anybody else that you want to mention?
I think that's everybody.
I don't know the timetable on Buford. I don't. I mean, he's good to see him moving around.
I don't think they've said it, so it's not like we should know it.
He said in Indianapolis they're going to be very deliberate and careful with him. So, yeah. And then, I mean, he's still 9 months out from the injury. Like, it still feels a little early there.
It was a brutal injury. So we had him on our most indispensable Huskers, hopeful that he might be around the way guys recover now, but he's not, and they're going to have to proceed at least to start the season without him.
All right, we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we are going to get into some of the positives so far that we have found throughout fall camp, and then a few of the concerns that have popped up as Nebraska has started working towards the 2023 season. All that and more when we return here on the Husker247 podcast. I promised positives. I promised concerns. I gave these two guys some homework, and let's see if the dog ate it or if they came through. Bruntz, what is something that you feel positive about now, several weeks into fall camp, as Nebraska heads into its 2023 season?
Yeah, I was doing my homework on the bus on the way in. I feel positive about defensive depth right now. I think they want to play a lot of guys. They want to play more than 20. And I think when you look at the defensive line, I think they've got 6 or 7 guys they feel okay about. I think they're going to be able to run through a lot of guys in that secondary. The top group at linebacker feels pretty set. You got a couple other guys there as well that are going to be in that mix. So I think it's not going to be a situation where it's just going to be the same 11 cast of characters every week and hope that group can get it done. I mean, I think they're going to line change a little bit. I think they're going to be able to kind of get multiple and give some offenses some tough looks based on personnel and different personnel that they have. So, Matt Rule's talked and not really gone deep into it, but just kind of quick asides where he talks about how difficult this defense is in the red zone. And, the players have talked about just how kind of difficult wrapping your arms around the different looks that they see as an offense from the defense. So I think that depth is going to hopefully be a strength for Nebraska this year, and there won't be too much of a, kind of cold water to the face with the defensive scheme change.
Bruntz, if I were to give you a magical gold coin, and that gold coin you could bet on any one player, and if they were, nominally considered to have a good season, that coin could be turned into 5 coins. Who do you feel most confident in? Yeah, magical coin here.
That's pretty neat.
I'd bet on Reimer. I feel like this defense is going to fit him really well. So I would go him, or I would go. I go MJ Sherman. I think he's a good fit for that jack spot. Those are my 2. Right. If I bet 2, can I turn it into 10?
No. You can split them in half, but you can still only recruit up to 5.
Okay. That was kind of like the wuss bet of the week, I think, maybe. Reimer and Sherman.
We'll work on seeing if we can get the wuss bet of the week sponsored by a local gym. It seems like the sort of radio thing I would have done back in the day. All right, BC, give me something you are positive about now, several weeks into fall camp.
I'll stick with defense while we're there. The unique aspect of this defense, and we were talking about this a little bit before the practice the other day, Schaefer, just the fact that it's going to be difficult, I think, for teams to prep for. And where's the truth in that coming out of camp? Well, you hear it from the offensive coaches saying how they see all these different alignments, and it's tough to adjust to, like knowing exactly what you're going to see on a given play. And so I think the fact that this defensive scheme can fluctuate between how many down linemen it has and just really be versatile in that way is going to be tricky to prepare for, and could give them an advantage. And so we'll see. And people in the who are making the trips, like for BTN, they will, whatever you think of their opinions, they will say like it is a unique defense compared to the rest of the league from what they've seen on their visit. So that stands out to me, and I think it could matter for a game or two this season.
All right, same gold coin question to you, but no Reimer, no Sherman.
Who's going to just flourish this year?
Who are you betting on, essentially?
Yeah, to have a good time.
Yeah, to have a good time. Nash Hutmacher's who I'm going to bet on. I just think he's different this year from everything we've heard. I'll buy into the hype on that one. I believe he's changed his body. I believe he's at that point in his career. We've seen it in the past with examples of defensive linemen who just find it and it's different all of a sudden. The old Damian Daniels example I always use. So I think he could do some of that where we're starting to see more plays. I'll bet you on that first Thursday night, he'll make a play. It's not a specific prediction yet, but he's going to just blow up a play at some point in that game. And you're going to be like, yeah, we haven't seen that really from him before. So I think Hutmacher is my answer, or Hutmaker, or however it's pronounced properly.
I think you can just stick with Hutmacher and be fine.
Okay.
That's okay. Did you, you hinted a little bit there at the Hypecast. Are you getting ready for some oddly specific predictions? Could one of those be that Nash Hutmacher knocks over 2 linemen on one play?
I was scribbling some things down at the Blues Traveler concert, thinking about it. So I don't want to get those out into the public yet, but the general public will hear those soon enough.
Yeah, you've now referenced it twice, and I'm not going to let it go any longer.
Yeah, did you go to Blues Traveler, Brian?
Yeah. Give us a deep cut from Blues Traveler that you think people are missing out on because they're just listening to Hook all the time.
No, I don't have any. They did a version of Creep by Radiohead that's you can find on YouTube. Okay. It's pretty. I thought it was pretty good. It's got almost like a little reggae sound to it, I would say. But I love a good harmonica. It was a good show. The only knock I'd have, Blues Traveler is a great musical band, but it's sort of like if you're watching an action movie and there's that scene where they're fighting and it seems like, to me, it always carries on like 5 minutes too long. It's like we know who's going to win the friggin' fight, and it goes 15 minutes, but they want to spend their budget. Blues Traveler will have a lot of songs where you're just digging it for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then it goes on another 4 or 5 minutes kind of with the harmonica and them jamming out. And so because I have a short attention span, that would be my only negative comment on it, is that a few songs carry on a little too long.
I love that. To sum up BC's review, Blues Traveler, less harmonica, please.
Yeah. BC likes harmonica, but not too much harmonica.
But I love the band, so yeah, I did go to the concert, as I mentioned a couple times.
By like minute 9 of that song where you're just shouting, "Play Hook! Play Hook!"
They saved Hook till the end, which was a smart move.
It was back.
Yeah, it does. Well, the most fun thing for me, real quick, was I was actually one of the younger people there, which kind of surprised me. I thought maybe I'd be
unusual for you at this point, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of people like about 50, 55, and I do this now where I look at people my age and a little older, and I try to picture what they were like 25 or 30 years ago. Like, man, I bet that dude he was rolling. I bet like 25 years ago, or her, And so that's what I did most of the concert, is I was just people watching, thinking about what they were like at like Edge Fest in 1998.
Love it. I love it. All right. Well, that was your intermission in what you're feeling good about. And we're gonna jump into some concerns now.
Yeah. We didn't do our 2 positives.
We'll stick with Brian. We'll get back to some positives.
Oh, okay.
But we're just jumping around now. What concern do you have right now for Nebraska football?
I thought Rule put some cold water on the flames, which was probably a smart thing to do, because I think he believes it, and for his team's sake, that it wasn't as bad, that Saturday scrimmage, as sort of I think people initially thought for the offense, where he said the defense dominated. That's what he said after the practice, or dominated the day. But he pointed out that most of the offense's problems were the procedural stuff, like sort of they've worked so hard on the station-to-station aspects and drilling down that they needed to come back and circle back a little bit to like just getting the plays in and stuff like that, just being timely with how you execute all that with officials on the scene. And so that was his big problem with it. But my concern is, if you think about that scrimmage where that was an issue, and then you think about the spring game where I know it wasn't necessarily the first team, but there was a lot of fumbleitis with the snap exchanges. And then you think about the Saturday scrimmage even before the spring game, which was on a cold, windy day on April 15th, and the offense struggled that day too. By my count, in the 3 like major scrimmages they've done of late, the offense has all had sort of things like that where there's been, mishaps and stuff of some sort. And so that worries you a little bit. It doesn't shock you because that's what happens in the off season, and you kind of got to build up to being that well-oiled machine. But so far in the scrimmages, it doesn't seem like they've had that one where they've just walked away, where the offense just had themselves a day, So that maybe worries you a little bit, or maybe Nebraska's defense is really good. But if you want a concern, that's it for me.
Bruntz, you got a concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think the quarterback depth thing is a little bit of a concern. Obviously Jeff Sims is the guy. I think they're going to ask a lot of Jeff Sims. I mean, you guys know too. I mean, at some point during the season, you're probably going to have to lean on your quarterback depth a little bit. I know that they've been very bullish on the work that Chubba Purdy's done since late in the spring and how he's come along. Heinrich Harburg is largely unproven, but they like what he can do. Matt Rule said yesterday that he believes they can win with the backups. I'm kind of in the camp that, you need to see a little bit of something from those guys. I mean, Chubba Purdy did not look good during his time last year. And I don't know if that's a function of him, whatever the offense they were running at the time late in the season, which seemed pretty slapdash. But that's a concern of mine going into the season. It just feels pretty razor thin at that quarterback spot. So, I guess we'll see if maybe early in the season those guys can get some work. I'm not anticipating blowouts in those non-con games, but whatever work they can get, whoever emerges as the backup quarterback might be worth exploring there.
August 16th, Bruntz, does Jeff Sims play every start? Does he start every game Nebraska has in 2023? You can decide whether that's going to be more than 12 or not.
Yeah. I'll say no. I mean, I just think you're playing the odds a little bit. That's, something's going to happen at some point. But, they like what Purdy's doing. You kind of need to see it before I buy into it. So that's my concern.
All right. Do you have another concern, or was it just one?
No, I mean, I think the other, I like what the ceiling of the defensive line can be. And I think they've got guys that they can lean on. I think my concern there is whether guys 4 through 7 or 4 through 8 are at the level where they can give meaningful snaps. Because we kind of have, I think, an emerging idea of what the 2 deep is kind of looking like at defensive line. I think you're going to have some true freshmen in that mix. I think you're going to have guys that haven't been counted upon yet. And, it's Minnesota right out of the gates. And there's going to be a lot of physical run teams that those guys are going to be seeing early-ish in the season in September. So, that's another concern, is just whether I believe they will have depth. I think they have bodies and guys that can maybe help them, but how much right out of the gates, we'll see. And I think that's maybe where a concern is for me.
BT, your final, not final, but another concern you would like to toss on the pile.
I was going to actually say what Bruntz did, but I can switch over to, I mean, it's sort of the talking point of the week, I guess, but the receivers, it's just like, who are those guys beyond Billy Kemp that you can just count on? And maybe they have it pretty well solved if like Marcus Washington just hits the ground on a sprint when he's back. And, like a guy like Garcia Castaneda takes off, like that can make you forget about things in a hurry, but we have to see it first. And we have to see like how in tune this passing game actually is. It feels like just kind of reading the clues that the running game has been ahead of the passing game, which doesn't surprise me. So, I mean, a positive connected to this concern is the O-line apparently did pretty well in pass pro in that Saturday scrimmage, and they've made some leaps there. But is there going to be a freshman or two who pops out at wide receiver this year? That's still a big question. Does there have to be? I think at some point they're going to need a couple plays from them. I understand what Rule was saying the other day, and it was probably good to reinforce like, hey, this first game, if Malachi Coleman's not on the field against Minnesota, let's not lose our crap about it. Like if Jaden Doss or somebody. I mean, this is going to be a grown man game, as he said. They know what they're walking into. This is the kind of opener where you don't expect 18-year-olds to play a lot. Frankly, it's maybe there'll be a few of them, but not a lot. So I kind of like that he veered toward that avenue with the freshmen, and it takes a little weight off them too. Like it doesn't have to happen those first 2 weeks. If it clicks for Malachi or somebody in week 6 or 7, good. We'll take that. That's what he was saying. And that's got to be good for them. And it's a challenge to the older guys like Fleeks and those guys. Like, you've been around. This is your kind of game. You've been in these atmospheres. Let's get out there and make some plays. But receiver is a question mark to me. And Rule has said as much. It's a question mark to them too. So I think that's a pretty safe one to say.
Bruntz, give me your last positive.
I actually like the running back group that they have. They're going to really try to hammer the ball, and I think they like the 1-2 punch that they have with Grant and I'm blanking.
Gabe Irvin.
Emmett Johnson's probably going to have a role. Ramir Johnson's probably going to have a role. I think that group can get the job done for how much they're going to want to run the ball. And I think they're going to not give up on it if it doesn't work right away either. I mean, I could see where you might have some frustrating moments as a fan if you're getting 2-3 yards of a crack early in the season and just keep going back to that. But I do like that group. I like the potential there. One other positive, I get the sense that special teams is probably going to be a group that they can have a little bit of an advantage there. I think they're going to be aggressive. I think Brian Buschini is probably one of the better punters in the league right now, which in the Big Ten, that's saying something. And that group is going to have to be good because they're going to play a lot of close games. It's going to be a lot of razor thin margins. And basically who can make fewer mistakes, I think is going to end up winning some of these Nebraska games. So I like the direction of special teams. We'll see what kicker looks like. That sounds like that's still in flux, but I think their approach to special teams is one that will allow them to have some positives there.
BT, finish it off. Your last positive.
The transfer additions of Billy Kemp and Ben Scott both seem like unbelievably huge at this moment. Because we already knew what Billy Kemp's production was like at Virginia, and that says enough. But the fact that you're having this process, back to my last negative, where you're kind of trying to work these young receivers and get some guys going, it seems like from what we've been told, Billy Kemp is just like been a great peer teacher and a guy who's really taken people under his wing and is just really good at that, about showing like this is how you're supposed to practice to have success. So Billy Kemp, he's probably going to be the punt returner. He'll probably be the leading receiver. 1 year, Nebraska's had some success with these 1-year players at wide receiver, and I think Billy Kemp can be another. And then Ben Scott, I know you talk about the old Norman Dale quote about what you have, let's focus on that, and what you don't have. There was a disappointment about the transfers who got away on the O-line in the offseason. But sometimes you got to go back to how big a deal it was that Ben Scott chose Nebraska. And if he can be what the guys around him think he is in the offseason and take that into the fall, it seems like they really have a good command center on that front, which could help in that pass pro that we're talking about and why that's improved and all those things. So it seems like Ben Scott has fit right into that group. And those two guys right there, those two guys could help change a game or two the way it's coming across.
All right. Any closing thoughts from either of you at this point? Like I said, we're still 2 weeks away, so we're still going to be coming back. We'll get our podcast schedule a little bit more ironed out, and then of course once they get into game week and they're not playing on a Thursday, we'll have a consistent podcast schedule. And right now it's tracking that the Hypecast will return. I believe we will continue to do the Sunday look back podcast, so that might occur on a couple different days with Thursday and 2 Friday games this year. But that's it for me. Anything that you guys want to add before we depart here today?
I'm gonna go listen to some Blues Traveler now. I got the itch.
Are you gonna fast forward through the harmonica though?
So much harmonica. No, Blues Traveler is still a good listen. I occasionally listen to Blues Traveler anyways.
So I guess, Bruntz, do you think it's a thing where the general public likes harmonica a little bit too much? Is that where BC comes down on this?
They don't like it enough.
You don't like the harmonica.
No, I do. I said that for a given tune, I love the harmonica. For a given tune, though, about 5 minutes into a song, any band, I'm like, I got it. Let's play the next one.
BC doesn't like he doesn't like the improv. He doesn't like the jamming. Just color within the
lines. I was
line.
going to say, if BC goes to a Fish concert, he's going to hate it.
Play some harmonica and get out. That's all you got to do.
He's just singles radio only is what BC wants.
You ever hear a guy do his drum solo and you're like, for the first minute, it's like, that's freaking great. And then like 2 minutes, you're like, all right. And then, but you're just kind of like, come on, let's move it on.
BC's like the NBA official just running down the court after checking on the 3-pointer. He's just got the finger. He's trying to wrap it up, Let's see what we got here. Run it back.
Yeah. So I enjoy the concert, though. I don't want it to come off otherwise. I enjoy Jack Stoll and I enjoy Blues Traveler. So there you go.
All right. That sounds fantastic. I can't promise a lot of Blues Traveler content, but you should still get to Husker247.com. There is plenty that is being covered from practice. There's still recruiting stuff going on. There's going to be some Grant Bricks updates coming in the coming days, as well as we try to figure out when the Logan Magnolia offensive lineman plans to announce his commitment. Network sourcing seems to be all over the place on that one, so that'll be fun as we try to get our arms around that. And of course, like I said, the game is coming up in 2 weeks, so there'll be plenty of coverage at Husker247. The high school football season starts in the state of Nebraska on Friday, and we will hope to have someone at the Bellevue West Creighton Prep game. Bellevue West, I don't know if you guys know this, Nebraska has 3 commitments from Bellevue West in the 2024 class, so we might be taking in a handful of Thunderbird games this year. For Michael Bruntz and Brian Christopherson, I'm Mike Schaefer. We are Husker247. Be sure, as I said, to stop by Husker247.com, and we'll be back later with more Husker247 podcast content.